Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Or if it's your first time, welcome to my channel. My name is Marlene and I talk about eating disorder recovery and everything related to healing the relationship with your own body, with food and with movement. And let's dive right into the topic as we always do. And a bunch of you have asked me to actually tell my all-in story again. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what all-in means, who it might be for and who it might not be for, the risks, the pros and cons, and of course my own story as well. So all in basically means that you allow yourself to eat everything. Normally you're not on a meal plan because you choose to listen to your physical and mental hunger, and you basically allow yourself to eat everything. That means all in. For me, my all in journey started with actually slowly increasing my intake first because I came from a very long period of restriction and under eating, and I was aware that in these cases, people are oftentimes in risk of refeeding syndrome. Refeeding syndrome is a potentially life-threatening condition, which happens when you go from restricting to increasing your intake again, and it normally doesn't have anything to do with your weight. So also people who are BMI-wise not underweight are in risk of refeeding syndrome. And a few symptoms to mention, and there are way more, are like disbalances in your electrolyte, your potassium, potential heart failure, issues with your heart, a lot of water retention, feeling very weak, neurological problems, and many, many more. So you can tell refeeding syndrome is nothing to joke with. So again, please make sure to always talk to your dietitian and your doctor first. And if you decide to go all in, to also be medically supervised all the time. This is really, really important. So after slowly increasing my intake and like doing that for a couple of weeks actually, and being, I made sure that I was like medically stable enough to then go all in, I chose to do exactly that. So I chose to listen to my physical and mental extreme hunger. I did make a video about these topics before, but if you want me to touch on it again, let me know in the comments. And so I was actually eating a lot, and I went from eating very, very little for a very long time to eating a lot. And I mean that without any judgment because that was exactly what my body needed. But of course, in that time, it was very hard because my judgment of calories, of amounts of food was so different than it is now. Now, when I'm working with clients and they tell me what they're eating, it never feels like a lot or too much for me because, first of all, I've been there myself. Second of all, I know that it is very normal. And thirdly, there is no thing as too much in eating disorder recovery. And this was actually something that was crucial for me to rewire, to like relearn that my body can handle food and that there is no too much and that I should not judge any amounts of food. So going all in taught me that I can handle food. It taught me that my body needs a lot of food because otherwise I wouldn't have had this extreme hunger mentally and physically. But let's talk about who all in might be for and who all in might not be for a little bit more. So, as I just said, all in can be a great method to rewire, to go from a very restrictive eating disorder or from an eating disorder where you can like kind of judge food, cut out food groups, all that kind of stuff, to allowing yourself to eat everything again. Of course, there's certain things that you have to take care of as well. So, for instance, if you have avoided certain foods for a very long time, chances are that your body will react in a certain way to them. For instance, I did not eat a lot of lactose in my eating disorder and especially no fats as well. So once I started to increase my food and there with also like lactose and fats and carbs and actually everything, my body did definitely reacted to that because when we undereat and when we cut out certain food groups, our body adjusts because it's very smart. And so we don't build certain enzymes anymore because our body doesn't need them. And especially when we're under eating, the body wants to save and conserve energy anyway. So not producing certain enzymes is just like a way of, saving energy. But once I started to eat those foods again, my body needed to adjust again. So it needed to learn, oh, we're eating those foods again, so we need those enzymes again. Which meant that for a good amount of time, I actually had a lot of like stomach issues, pain. And again, if you're going through this, please let it check by a doctor. I definitely went to a doctor because it is so important to make sure that you're medically safe. And it was definitely super uncomfortable. I also had a lot of bloating, which of course was not great for my body image as well. But after time, my body adjusted again, and now I can have those foods without any issues, and I'm not reacting to certain foods anymore because it's like a normal part of my diet. Another very important part about going all in is resting. So, all in would not be all in if you would still work out heavily or try to make up for those calories. All in basically means complete rest and allowing yourself to eat whatever your body needs. And I did exactly that. And I'm telling you right now, it was not easy because during my eating disorder, I would walk around so much. I had a very, very strong urge to move. And it was really hard for me to relearn that. But it was also necessary because I definitely had to relearn how to eat and how to rest again. So, this is something that, as hard as it might be, can have such a big impact on your neural rewiring. All in is great to let go of any kind of food rules. It's great for relatively quick weight restoration, which is normally something that makes a lot of people in recovery very, very uncomfortable. But I actually told myself, well, I have to gain weight anyway, so it doesn't matter if I like prolong the process for month and years even, or if I just like put on this weight faster because I have to do it anyway. A lot of people who go all in also experience overshoot weight, which is actually very, very important for recovery. I also made another video about that, but if you want me to share my own overshoot story, I can do that as well. But these are all topics to be aware of and especially to be prepared for. Because the most important part is to not step back once that happens. Yes, you will gain weight, and yes, your body will change, and it will be uncomfortable. And I'm not saying that to make anyone afraid, but to be very honest with you guys. I've been there, and the discomfort was beyond. I can't even describe how I felt. But standing here now, sharing my story, and being comfortable in my body shows you that it is possible. But you have to push through. It was certainly not easy for me, but it was so worth it because it brought me to where I am today, to be fully recovered. Another thing that is really important to mention about going all in is the benefit of decreasing anxiety around food and exercise, not having all those thoughts around these topics anymore. In the beginning, you will have them, but it will go way faster away than for somebody who, for instance, super slowly increases their intake. And that oftentimes is because people want to hold on to the last bits of their eating disorder just a little bit. So, for instance, if somebody avoided a certain food for a very long time and then actually allows themselves to eat anything, but like still avoids this one single meal, it's oftentimes because they want to hold on to their eating disorder, which is a very common thing in eating disorder recovery. But it is super important to let go of that because we want to let go of the eating disorder. And you will not fully recover if you hold on to the last bits of your eating disorder. Let's talk a little bit more about the challenges of going all in. I mentioned before it can go along with a relatively quick weight gain, changes in your body, sometimes also water retention. And I'm saying it one more time, always make sure to see a doctor about it. My water retention was crazy. It was really, really crazy. It was painful, it was uncomfortable. It definitely had a very, very bad impact on my body image. And I was not sure if it would ever go away, honestly. But then I educated myself more about recovery, about the science of recovery, why that is happening. And I started to understand that my body is doing that for a reason. And after, getting checked out by a doctor to make sure my organs, my kidneys, everything is safe, I was able to accept it a little bit more and to just like trust the process and to trust that the water retention will go away. Something else to be aware of is your own judgment and maybe even things other people might say. Especially when people have known you when you've been in your eating disorder, it can happen that they might make comments. Sometimes those comments are meant very positively, like, I'm so glad you're eating more, or I'm so proud of you. But that can still be triggering for somebody who is in recovery. And sometimes people also don't understand why you need so much food because not everyone is educated about eating disorders and eating disorder recovery. And unfortunately, even therapists or doctors might not understand. I've seen that a lot in my journey and also while working with clients. It always makes me really sad because I think those people should be educated about these topics, but unfortunately, not everyone is. So make sure to maybe work with someone who understands it, maybe an eating disorder therapist, or a coach additionally, or maybe like a dietitian who's also informed about eating disorders, because recovery is a time where we're oftentimes very, very insecure about everything. We're kind of like changing everything we've been doing for quite a while. So it is very, very important to have someone to reassure you and to let you know that you're doing the right thing. Even though I'm a big fan of all in, it's helped me personally a lot, it might not be the right approach for everyone. Because, first of all, everyone is different, and some people might need a little bit more time. Please still make sure to not like trick yourself and undereat and be in quasi recovery. But all in is definitely not the only way to full recovery. It was just my way, and it is a way that is, helpful for a lot of people. And it's also like a very big term on social media in the recovery space. But that doesn't mean that it has to be your way. If you're open to trying it and willing to trying it, and also be willing to be advised by a doctor while you're doing it, great. But you might also notice that it's not for you. And it can be very tricky to figure out if it's really not for you or if it's your eating disorder panicking. And therefore, a dietitian, a therapist, a coach can be very helpful to just be able to understand your voice, the eating disorder voice, and to see what's really going on. Let's talk about a few misconceptions about going all in. First of all in is not giving up and it's not failing your eating disorder. Your eating disorder might want you to think that you're failing it, that you're not strong enough, that you're giving up, all these things. But this is not the case. It is a very, very common thought that a lot of people who just start going all in have, but it's actually the opposite. Your eating disorder is lying to you, and going all in is actually a huge win, and it's not giving up. Another misconception about going all in is that it's not individual, that it's the same approach for everyone, which is certainly not true. Yes, all in means resting and eating a lot of food, but how that looks like for different people can be super individual. For some people, it's different kinds of food. For some people, it's different amount. There is no right or wrong. Yes, resting is important, but that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to do anything. For some people, resting means going for a very, very short walk, and I'm talking really short. And again, this is where a coach or a therapist comes in to make sure that you're not tricking yourself again. But these things are still individual, and it's an approach that has certain guidelines, but it is certainly individual as well. And another misconception is I'm going to go all in, I'm going to have a few challenges, but then everything will be fine. Recovery is never a linear process. Unfortunately, you will have ups and downs. You will have days where it's going to be harder, you might face challenges, and it's not going to be a linear process. And I'm also telling you that right now because if you're currently in recovery and you feel like, oh, I should be further along, it shouldn't be that hard, I've been in recovery for X amount of time, then you might feel like recovery is not for you. And that is not the case. Recovery is literally for everyone. I've seen people recover who were about to give up, who've had so many tries, who thought that it's really not for them, and eventually they did recover. So as long as you don't give up and as long as you make sure to don't trick yourself, recovery will be for you. And whether it's all in or not, there will be an approach that works for you. In my all in journey, my extreme hunger definitely lasted for a good amount of time. In the beginning, it was more like the honeymoon phase. So I would like go all in, and I was so excited to finally eat all those foods I had forbidden myself for years. I've literally had foods that I hadn't touched in 9 years. To finally decide to allow them for myself again was huge. I was excited. It was like, finally I can rest, finally I have those foods. But like shortly afterwards, I began to struggle and I was like, shit, what if this is not for me? What if I gave up? Maybe I should move again. And so it was definitely like the first down after a short amount of time. I still continued to do it. I still continued to challenge myself to eat new foods literally every day, but also to make sure to repeat eating certain foods, because it's not enough if you challenge with your food once and then don't eat it again for weeks. So I decided to really challenge myself to repeat the challenges, but to also make sure to eat new foods all the time. And for me, it was actually very helpful to do that with other people as well. So I had a few people who were very aware of my recovery and who I could go to, lunch with, dinner with. But honestly, breakfast, lunch, and dinner was definitely not enough for me. I had extreme hunger, which meant I ate a lot of food. I ate huge amounts of food for a very long time, and I had to stick with it. And especially when I gained weight, which happened very fast, and when I was quote unquote weight restored, we all know that I'm not a huge fan of this whole concept, but I was still gaining weight. I began to panic. And I did definitely have days where I wanted to go back, where I kind of slipped back a little bit, but something was just telling me that this is not right. I was like, if I'm going back now, I'm going to do this all over again. And I've come relatively far already, so I might as well just give this a new try. I might as well just continue doing what I'm doing. And that's what I did. And again, it was really not easy. I struggled for a long time. I had so many thoughts about my body. I still struggled with body dysmorphia, but I couldn't hold on to the low number I was used to see on the scale. Now I didn't even know if it was really body dysmorphia or if I was just hoping that I was still skinny and I was not. So this was such a confusing time. And on top of that, I struggled with comments from others. I struggled with doctors who didn't understand what was going on. And I still decided to continue doing what I was doing. And over time, my appetite decreased a little bit. And in the beginning, I actually noticed that once I started to eat a little bit less, my eating disorder was getting louder again. So I kind of pushed myself to still eat more, even though I wasn't that hungry anymore. That was just like my approach to make sure that I'm not undereaten. I was like, I'd rather eat a little bit more than eat too little and deal with my eating disorder thoughts again. And a lot of people actually know that. Like, oftentimes your extreme hunger decreases a little bit, and you feel like, oh, maybe I can, like, eat a little bit less again, but then the eating disorder gets louder. And as long as this is the case, it means that you still need to eat more. But over time, I was able to, slowly decrease my intake. And this wasn't even a conscious decision. It was more me going on with life and like learning to listen to my hunger cues again. And also being so stable in my recovery that I knew that I would not go back to restricting. So over time, I was able to listen to my hunger cues again, to not trick myself, and to start learning how to eat intuitively. But that took me a really long time. And the amount of time that it takes is different for everyone. So it doesn't even matter how long it was for me. Please stop looking up how long it was for other people, because I know what people in recovery are doing. And I know that you're looking for answers, but for one person, it might be 1 year. For one person, it might be 3 years. For someone more, for someone less. So it doesn't really matter how long it takes for other people. Your recovery journey is so unique. And your body will show you. I promise you, there will come a point where you know when it's time to let go of, the whole recovery process and to continue learning how to eat intuitively. But until then, it makes always sense to eat a little bit more, even if you don't feel as hungry anymore. I really hope that video was helpful for you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if this is an approach you are trying, if this is something that is working for you. And as always, of course, let me know if you have any other topics that you would like me to cover. And I will see you in the next one.